will be, but yeah, we are live. So, hello everyone. So, this is welcome to Tools for Life with Coach Chris, and today I am bringing on a life insurance agent who also has man just incredible stories in relations to Chauffeur back in Boston. So, this is Darryl Hopkins, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Darryl, so I remember you were sharing with me like your transition from Massachusetts
Yes.
and you used to do chauffeuring. Tell us about that.
Well, um, I was an incredible Red Sox fan, and life was full of disappointment. And when they got to a World Series, they were a great team to follow, but there were a lot of crushing end of season disappointments, and the Yankees fans would chant 1918 at us. And then in 2004, when they came from 3 games down, you know, to nothing, and it was the ninth inning. Uh, they came back, won that game, and then won the next three states straight, and went on to beat St. Louis in the World Series. And I was like, "Wow, I can leave now," because everybody knew that I was just a really deep bled Red Sox red fan. I would tell people, life begins on April 1st and it ends when, they get knocked out, but not this year. And so I actually started thinking, well, we could move to Florida and get out of winter, because the few winters before that had been pretty intense. So that's
First,
what that's what inspired the move.
first of all, shout out to all the Red Sox fans. I know my uncle's gonna hate me for saying that because I am a Yankees fan, but I mean, sport is fun, and you showing your spirit for Boston and for the Red Sox. It's it's basically
Well, a shout out to the Yankees fans, because between the two of us, you guys always won a lot, and we were it's one of the great rivalries in all of sport in all the world. So at least we were part of that. They
yeah.
were epic games. Everybody would say it's like buying a ticket to go to the theater that night to go see a Red Sox Yankees game. So
I also know that coincidentally there is this growing trend of people moving to Florida, and you were sharing with the winters to to completely just change their winters.
yes, absolutely. I mean, just this year alone, up till this month of April, 10,000 people have left New York and moved to Florida.
I did not know
10,000 families
I didn't even know
just
that.
in 4 months.
Wow.
So
We're starting a trend. And with that being said, how long has it been that you've been here in Florida? Because it's my third year,
17th.
17th. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. And now so for all of those that are unaware, I am a licensed financial coach, but I'm still a newbie at this. I still have a lot to learn. However, Darryl Hopkins is a licensed insurance agent as well.
Yeah, licensed in 4 states so far. That will continue, and contracted with 10 major carriers, the big names: Aetna, Mutual of Omaha, Americo, and I could go on. But
Which four states do you help?
am I
Yes.
currently, see, you can get licensed in a state. Like, I can help somebody from another state, and while their contract is in, um, being processed, I can apply for that state right then and there, and it will probably go through even before the contract processes. So
And which are those four states?
Florida, Texas, Oregon, and Ohio.
Florida, Texas, Oregon, and Ohio. Let's
Yes.
share with me, maybe for those eventually that will be viewing this. Anybody that you know from Texas or Oregon? Any
Oh,
friends?
I have an entire my brother Dana, who is 7 years older than me, raised not one but two families. Divorce happens, and he has five sons, and they all live in the greater Portland area. So, and the other reason was that Oregon is also 3 hours behind. So, if I was, contacting people at 11 p.m. here, it was only 8 p.m. there. So, you know, because having been a chauffeur uh, and taxi driver, etc., I was always nights, and I've found the transition from being a night person to a day person. It's pretty hard, especially when it's a lifelong thing. So
Yes, I understand. I've actually also to all those others. I've been partnering up with a patented patch that is said to improve sleeping. So I have to experiment with that first before I also share it. So, for example, to you and a lover that I'm seeing who has sleeping problems. So
magnesium with zinc and some chamomile tea, preferably with some lemon and maybe a splash of honey. I know the honey constitutes sugar, but uh, honey's good for you. I'm very into whole food eating and supplements. Not You shouldn't go overboard on supplements. You should take it, you know, as needed, or you just don't want to go overboard. That's all there is to it.
this is a cool similarity that Darryl and I share because as he was attempting his business email. So for anyone that doesn't know, if you guys are seeking to contact Darryl for insurance, you can go to contact him at Darryl at wealth-health.co.
Thank you. And my Instagram,
And his
D
Instagram.
D Hopkins 1964.
Yes, because I'm
And
sure there's.
I post there quite regularly. And because Chris, there's a particular product I'd like to mention. Can I do that?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. This particular product from a major character. It's the largest privately held insurance company. And you probably haven't heard of Americo because they don't spend money on advertising, and they work with independent contractor agents like myself. So they can offer, there's only one that offers cash back. Well, Aetna does it, but strictly on a 30-year program. Uh, the CBO 100 from Americo is a unique product in all of insurance because it's hard for people to believe this, but if you get all your money back at the end of the term, and I mean every penny that you paid in premium, including riders, if you chose any riders, whatever your monthly premium is, if you multiply that times 12 and you multiply again for the number of years you chose to do it, 15, 20, 25, or 30, you get a tax-free check of that amount. And depending on what your premium was, for the sake of argument, $100 a month for easy math, that's $1,200, and then multiply that times the term that you chose that fit your schedule in life, depending on where you're at, you get all of it back. So it's free to protect your family, and there are living benefits to it. And there's no other product like it. And I really want everybody possible to know about this because it's totally unique. You can get all your money
Yes.
back.
As a reminder, if you guys like this information that Darryl is sharing, you can simply like this video. And me using my coaching skills, I am holding those listening that see this valuable information by holding you accountable by simply contacting Darryl so that you can move forward with this. For example, you can go to his IG at dhopkins1964 and or email him at Darryl, that's Darryl at wealth health.co.
Thank
I
you
was
very much, Chris.
Yeah, I was also wondering, can you share some chauffeuring stories?
Sure. Well, I'm going to go with my Yankee connection. I picked up in a taxi because Town Taxi was immediately behind Fenway Park. So whenever staff, management, whatever, visiting player, manager needed a taxi, because back in the day, back in the 80s, there was no thing called Uber, there was no thing called Lyft, and you had to call a taxi. So Fenway Park used us. We were on a first name basis with the secretary. Her name was Helen. And this is back in the Haywood Sullivan ownership days. But I was standing in the garage, um, chatting with another driver and, just sort of taking a break. And John Ford, who was manager, yells out, "Hey, Hopkins, Fenway Park, some guy named Stein something." And I said, "You mean George Steinbrenner?" He goes, "I don't know. Some guy named Stein." I said, I jumped in the cab. I flew around the corner up on Van Ness, and George Steinbrenner comes out and gets in my cab. And I was going to take him down to a meeting he was having with Domino Sugar for God knows what. But, when you're a billionaire Yankee owner, you have other businesses, probably very many of them. But anyway, George and I, we struck a chord. I've always been able to, in my life, make friends rather quickly. And I'm also something of a master Boston historian, and I became actually quasi famous, at least among concierges later in my life. But so as the years went by, and then black car services came into play,
Mm.
George said, "Darryl, you need to upgrade. You need to go black car." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, well, what do I need to do? You need to buy a Lincoln, blah, blah, blah." So I'm not going to say how much, but George wrote me a check. And about 3 months later, I called him back and I had a Lincoln, blacked out windows and everything. And the very next day, I picked up from a private jet the people who own Max Factor. And we went shopping for condos for the day for his daughter who was going to start at Boston University.
Mm.
And that was my first black car service. Unbelievable. And it just led on to a lot of great things. Like I said, I was on speed dial for a number of concierges. If somebody was too famous to go on a public history tour of Boston, and I've given history tour of Boston to one king, one queen, countless senators, congressmen, movie stars, people in the music industry. And I loved my life. It was great. I really enjoyed giving history tour because I could tell some great stories. I wasn't so much into the particular dates and things, but there are some of the stories that go along with the revolution in Boston. They're incredible. They're just you know, jaw dropping. So
Can you share one, because I haven't been to Boston. Looks like we briefly, Darryl, you there? Looks like we briefly lost connection. So, all right, folks. So I don't know if it's my end or if it's Darryl's end. Oh, there's Darryl.
yeah,
It could be both of ours.
you can
So
edit that, can't you?
um, to be continued, yeah. So
Oh,
back
okay.
where you left off.
Okay. All right. This is my favorite story because it involves a young man, and it has a lot of parts. Do we have like 10 minutes to tell this story?
Sure, yes, because initially I tried to do like a half an hour, so we're at 16 right now.
Oh, okay. All right. General Washington tells the young uh, captain, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. It's been a long time since I gave a history tour, but he tells him this is during Boston is now occupied by the British. The massacre hasn't happened. The famous Boston massacre hasn't happened yet, but um, Boston is under British militia occupation, and there is a general, and they're on Boston Common, bivouacked there, and Washington needs to figure out a way to get Boston out with not having a war on Boston soil, and because 80% of the people, there's about 20% Tories still left that are going to be you know with the crown, but the other 80 odd percent of Boston is definitely on the patriotic side and wants to, you know, be free people and not under the rule of the crown. The Tea
Mm,
Party has already happened. So he sends this young man, he's only 19 years old. I wish I had my history book with me, but anyway, um, he sends him up to Fort Ticonderoga in the dead of winter. It's like January.
mm,
And they have to drag all the cannon, and I'm talking big cannon, with ox on sleds. And this is the only way they could have done it, was that it was winter, because there are a number of frozen lakes to cross. And back in the
mm.
day, winter. So New York is an upper New York. Ticonderoga is an upper New York state. So he gets that done and only lost one cannon and a couple of oxen on the trip back to Boston. And in the dead of night, up where South Boston High School is, on a very high point um, that looks right down on Boston Harbor. And if you've ever been to Boston, you know where Long Wharf is. Long Wharf is right at the end of State Street, and it goes right way out into the water. If you've ever watched the movie Departed, one of the scenes is shot there where they're out and there's boats going by and people hanging around. But anyway, um, did my Boston accent come out there? My Departed. I could tell that story too, why we talk like that. But anyway, um, in the dead of night, they set up the cannon up in South Boston on the highest peak, and they do all the redo, the buffers to put the cannon down and aim them and all that. And the next day, Washington sends his second down to meet with the British general, and the British general is like, "Oh, great, they're going to surrender, and I can go home." But instead, when they get out to Long Wharf, we have something to show you. You get out to Long Wharf, cannonballs come flying out of South Boston, aka Southie, and land near the British ships, which are all lined up on Long Wharf and around Long Wharf, because there's a
Mm.
number. And the second looks at the general and says, we can either have a war right here, and I can just turn the cannon so they'll land on Boston Common and we'll attack as well, or you can get on your ships, before we decide to sink them, because we're going to sink them if you decide on the war thing. We're just going to sink all your ships, and then you won't have any way out. So, or you can leave. That's your choice. Well, it doesn't take them long to figure out that, well, because Boston's this little tiny island at that point with only one little strip of land to get out into the countryside. There's no back bay. That's Back Bay is what that is. It's a bay. It's
Mm.
water. And there's only an isthmus
Yeah.
to get out into the countryside. Boston is almost 3/4 bigger now than it was when they originally settled. It's all landfill. Boston's just a bunch of landfill from the Charles River and Back Bay and down on the waterfront. It's all reclaimed from the ocean and from the ocean and from the Charles River. So they decide to leave. And here's where the story gets really funny. So they're leaving, and Bostonians are out there yelling at them every day and throwing rotten tomatoes and food at them. And you have to remember, I like to make this point. This is a civil war. They're British, and we're British. That's why we park our cars, because in England they park their cars. They drop the letter R. It's the letter R. In all of New England, it's LMNOPQRS. So the last ship leaves on March 17th. Now, Chris, do you know what March 17th is? It's St. Patty's Day, laddie. It's the day
Oh.
we shall celebrate. And so, since they left on St. Patty's Day, they call it Evacuation Day in Boston, and now they run the marathon. No, that's a different thing. That's Patriots Day. So later on, when the Irish take over Boston, because when they arrived, there's a movie with it's called Far and Away with Tom Cruise and his at that time wife, and the north end of Boston, which is now an Italian giant eatery. There's over 40 restaurants just in the north end alone where you can eat great Italian food. Well, before the Italians, it was the Irish. And when the Irish stayed for 20 years and had big families, have big families and we'll vote ourselves in, because they can't go back. There's nothing to eat, because it's the potato famine, which causes the Irish to invade them, Boston, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, whatever, deep Irish roots and very large scale, exodus of Ireland to come to America. So when they finally elect an Irish mayor, when the children have all grown up, and now can vote, they elect an Irish mayor. And we had consecutive Irish mayors for years up until the 80s. It was all Irish mayors all the way. And the government was ruled by Irish. And that ties into The Departed and all kinds of things, the Irish South Boston gang, as you will. But anyway, the mayor decides, well, now, Mayor, let's look up St. Pat's Day. Let's see what happened historically, and maybe we can make a holiday of it. And sure enough, oh, look, they kicked the Brits out. And Irish and Brits, they get along like oil and water. So it's now called, it's Evacuation Day. And all government and everybody else that's in city, it's all a day off for St. Patty's Day. So it has a historical tie separated by 100 years. Great
Wow,
story.
I was unaware of these things that you're sharing, going on in your home state, and like wow, like I was also thinking like what was I doing on St. Patty's Day, and I was just remembering I was with a friend and her two kids. So, but
You
wow, yeah,
you weren't bending your elbow, laddie.
man. Leave a comment if you
No,
like Daryl's
we left that behind.
accent. I was surprised by your accents too, man. You were hitting it.
Oh, I'm a natural at that. That's why people loved my stories because, I would add accents in. If you
Daryl,
like a
well,
French accent, I can do that. And if you like a German accent, yeah, we could use that as well, yeah. And
so
British,
so
that's too easy.
So for a reminder, if not only are you looking for life insurance, folks, but you want a versatile insurance agent that can produce an Irish accent, a German accent, a British accent, I'm just reminding you for those listening, you've got Darryl Hopkins, and to find him, you can go to, for example, IG at D Hopkins 1964, and or you can also email him at Darryl, Darryl, at wealth-health.co.
No M on the end.
And as a reminder, Darryl, what led you to going into pursuing insurance?
Um, Becoming a senior and not like being prepared, which is why, a lot of insurance sell a lot of final expense, where you just take out it's a small policy, but it covers your burial slash cremation slash, depending on how high you go. Most of us leave some medical bills on our way out, hooked up to machines. And so my wife and I both got one of them. And then I started talking to the insurance agent, and, that it's basically talking to people. Well, guess what? I kind of like talking to people. I kind of thrive on that, especially, people in need. And everybody needs life insurance. None of us, none of us get through this ordeal. You got to go.
You,
So
you,
you want to cover yourself before that happens.
you've
And the
heard it.
sooner you do it, the younger you are, the cheaper it is, because health insurance premiums are based on age and health, strictly on age and health. So if you're in good shape and you're in your 20s, you should see the prices that kids in their 20s get. They're less than a quarter sometimes of somebody, in their 50s or 60s. And plus, you're probably in great health. So,
You're hearing it, folks, from Darryl, giving it a recommendation to those more on the younger side, and to add to Darryl. So another reason that led me to insurance was that my father in his 50s passed away, and he didn't have this, as well as how many
yeah,
families last minute go through a death in the family and have to do a GoFundMe in order to raise
yeah,
money.
yeah.
And not only is there's a lot of things that it can be being unprepared. It's also embarrassing, but essentially this approach in insurance is a better prepared approach to not have to worry about that, as whether you are a younger person for your parents.
Or for
And
retirement, an IULE, an IUL. I mean, this is what we've all learned from, keeping an eye on the wealthy. That's what they do. So it's good to copy.
yes, so if you guys need help getting that copy, reminder, so contact Darryl at IG at D Hopkins. That's D like dog for his first name Darryl. D Hopkins 1964, and or email him at Darryl at wealth-health.co. All right, Darryl. You have any last minute messages before we head out?
Um, yeah, go Rays. Since I live in Florida now, they're such an
Yeah.
exciting team. But God bless everybody. This was fun to do. It was kind of a flashback to doing history tours. They used to last an hour and a half, and I really enjoyed doing them. So, thank you, Chris, and thank you, everybody. I hope to hear from you soon.